Hello and welcome back to Gotham Sound's coverage of NAB 2025. Thank you for watching here with Andy from Sony. Andy, how are you?
Great, Nick. How are you doing?
Good.
By the way, compliment on your outfit.
Oh, thank you.
You were Mr. Sparkles. I love it. It's really great.
You can't see it on the camera, but
oh my
the
gosh.
one from yesterday, there's literally, it sheds sparkles
oh, that's not
everything.
good. But anyway, this is field gear, right? It's got to be able to handle it.
You open it up inside and just
cold
poof.
of winter, heat of summer, sparkles, whatever you hit.
Glitter everywhere.
That's right.
Well, thank you for being with us, and thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments for Andy, please leave them in the chat, and we will get to them. So, Andy, talk to us about what's going on at NAB for you.
Well, this year at NAB, we have our audio section, in addition to the enormous other part of the Sony booth with some other incredible video technology, but we know what's important, right? The audio section. Turn off the sound and people will walk out of the TV room in a heartbeat. So we understand. And, we're showing our full range. Well, not every product we make in Pro Audio, but certainly our wireless microphones, our couple of families of that. But we are showing maybe some might think a more mundane topic, headphones this year also. We've introduced recently 2 new pair of headphones. Of course, we have our iconic MDR-7506s we've had for years and years and years. But we have kind of updated that headphone to an MDR-M1. And the M1 is sort of maybe 7506 on steroids is one way to think of it. These have a very wide frequency response of 5 hertz to 80K. But what we've also done is made them insanely lightweight, yet fully strong enough to stand up to the rigors of professional. But we've also paid a lot of attention to isolation. Now, this is, arguably maybe more of a studio type requirement, but when you're singing a lead vocal in front of a nice, lovely C800G vocal mic, for example, you don't want the tracks you're listening and singing to leak out of the headphone and make its way into the microphone. So we've paid a lot of attention to that great isolation, but without making them so super tight that they're uncomfortable. And again, 5 hertz to 80K. They have tuned low frequency ports that keep the low frequency nice and tight. What good is that low frequency if it's mushy bass? That's a technical term, by the way. We have ports that control the flow of low frequency air and the velocity to keep, especially the 200 hertz range of a male vocal nice, well defined. Anyway, that's the
question for you: Does it fold up similar to the?
It goes flat, so you can put it into the pack of a backpack or something like that. That's one of the things certainly I loved about the 7506 is they folded up. However, one thing about the 7506 is that is not so great as the coiled cable. You buy it out of the box fresh, it's lovely, but then eventually gets coiled. Here we have built them with detachable cables and kind of straight cables. They come with a short cable, a long cable, 1/4-inch adapter, regular machined aluminum connectors. So that's a good thing. Now,
and what's the price on those?
These are $249.
Okay,
I believe.
So they are an upgrade.
They are an upgrade, certainly.
For sure.
The really other very special headphone that I love are these guys. These are Sony's, our first professional open back headphones. These are called MDR-M1s. The idea behind these is kind of unique, and the genesis behind them is a bit unique. It is tied into a technology that we're also showing here at the show and kind of introducing to the broadcast world as well, called 360 Virtual Mixing Environment, or 360 VME. Not to be confused with another thing in Sony land called 360 RA, Reality Audio, which is a 360 playback. You're in the middle of a sphere and you can place, elements anywhere around there. But this 360 VME is a way to capture precisely how you hear in any given environment. And these headphones were designed to go along with this 360 VME technology. I'll first tell you about the headphones, but then tell you about this 360 VME. So these are open back headphones. They also have a very wide frequency response of 5 hertz to 80K. open back headphones, though, are great for this immersive world that's we're kind of moving into, because in our VME technology, where you're trying to capture where sounds are coming from all around you, a closed headphone builds up a lot of resonances, and that hurts the localization cues potentially. An open back headphone doesn't have that problem, but open back headphones have their own unique problems, which is a lot of the frequency energy just leaks right out. So they may sound nice on the high frequency, the lows are kind of weak. Our Sony engineers solved that problem. We actually designed a unique diaphragm structure that is special, because a headphone diaphragm that can go from all the way from 5 hertz all the way to 80K and do so in a smooth transition without hills and valleys everywhere. The center dome on it has to be stiff enough to do 80K, but it's the outside edge that has to be pliable enough to do the 5 hertz. But as soon as you turn up the volume on a pair of headphones, you get a lot of low frequency distortion right away. So to solve that problem, we've employed a new concept called curved corrugation. And these are these outer edges. Maybe you can see them. The curved corrugation is a way to improve the almost the transition between high to low, but keep it from distorting greatly. And we computer modeled this and prototyped it, this curved corrugation, and it's different than just straight radial lines. Now, the other thing, on the other side of the diaphragm, notice these 3 little posts. That's called a triduct structure. And they're very specifically sized with very specific size holes drilled in them, and they act again as acoustic resistors that again control the flow and velocity of that low frequency air, so the bass stays very, very tight. So you have a lot of bass, and it's well tight and not quote unquote mushy. So we've solved the challenge of open back headphones, and they're lovely. Now, also, you don't want big, heavy headphones. Our world, you need to wear headphones for hours at a time. And they took every pair of, every piece in the headphone and reduced the weight in 1/10 of a gram increments, just up to the point that if they went any further, they wouldn't be strong enough to live in our pro world. The very first time I picked up these headphones, I go, uh-oh, plastic, whatever. But they're not. As a matter of fact, the cups are made out of a special aluminum alloy that is insanely light. And you can't really mold aluminum, so all of these little, helping them be open back, those are drilled, and the slots are, cut. So these are insanely light headphones. I had some people say, these are like wearing whipped cream. It's kind of like wearing air. I can just go on forever. But they are, I think, 223 grams, very, very lightweight. Now, they even went off on the ear pad material is Alcantara, which they use in luxury sports car seats. So as you're taking an S-pin turn, in Italy on at 90 miles an hour, you're not going to go sliding out of your seat. But they breathe lovely. They're insanely comfortable. They're lightweight. We also did the machined aluminum connectors. They went off. And these even have a balanced connector, so that if you're feeding these from maybe a digital Walkman that has a 4.4 millimeter, 4.3 millimeter headphone output for balance connector, you can drive these balanced. So these were designed now to bring it back home to support this 360 VME, but also to be a great pair of reference headphones for stereo mixing, for any kind of post-production, anything like that. Now, what is 360 VME? We've been working on this technology for almost 15 years, believe it or not. But about 6 or so years ago, Sony Pictures in Culver City, California, said, in the final stages of mixing the movies that you guys all go out and shoot and capture, you go into a dub stage. Purpose movie theater, huge mixing consoles, and you can fly sounds everywhere you want. But those rooms are very expensive, large, and Sony Pictures was making too many movies, and the few rooms they had couldn't handle the throughput. So they reached out to the R&D teams in Japan at Sony and said, any way you can make it so that an engineer could mix in a pair of headphones but have it sound completely identical to being in that giant theater. And as I like to say, the Japanese go, oh, we will study. So we will study. But they came up with this incredible thing called 360 VME, and they designed the headphones to go along with it. And truth is, it got to a great prototype stage just before the pandemic hit. So now, because they weren't allowed on the Sony Pictures lot, they could mix Spider-Man and Ghostbusters at home, and as though they were in those giant theaters. So what is it? What we do is we have these purpose-built tiny little microphones on these little wire hanger coils. You put one in each ear, you sit in the sweet spot of any size room, theater, small control room, up to 16 speakers in any location, Atmos, up, down, behind, below, whatever. And the microphones in your ears now feed off into a laptop. The laptop feeds test signals, sweep tones and voice, off into every speaker in the room in sequence, and it knows which sounds it's sending to. And the microphones pick up precisely how you hear. The shape of your head, the shape of your ears, the reflection off your chest, your shoulders, everything becomes your profile in that room. Goes off to the laptop, and then they put on a pair of headphones, hopefully these headphones, and they do a couple of more sweep tone and test tones that cancels out the effect of those headphones. And then they play the test tones out of the speakers again, and you go, yeah, I already heard that. But then the light bulb goes off in your head. Wait, I'm still wearing the headphones. What? And you pull them off, and it's dead quiet in the room. You were completely fooled that the sound is here, back, and everywhere it is need to be. And the point is, you can now go mix anywhere, in an airport lounge, on a beach, in your bedroom, as though you were in that original location that you were captured. And we have built a 15-foot by 15-foot whisper room that we have upstairs in our tech suites, and we are profiling people in an Atmos environment to show them what this is all about. So, to bring it on home, yes, if you're a huge production company and a film company and you have the luxury of going into a giant dub stage or wherever to mix, have at it. But if you're maybe a mid-sized production or something like that, or small, and you don't have the luxury but want to know how your mix is going to sound when your production gets released, you can go profiled in one of these, and now you can mix as though you were in that giant room.
That's great.
So it's kind of interesting technology. It's really fascinating.
We've had a couple of comments and questions. I'll just ask. Almanax wanted to know, is this kind of a similar idea to Apple's spatial audio, or is it a...
This is not, because this is insane. We are not kind of guessing or giving you a generic profile. You know, we even have a thing on Sony phones where you can take a picture of your face and a picture of each ear, and it goes into a giant database that will approximate how you should hear like this. But this, what we're talking about, VME, it's incredible. It's one of those weird things you have to hear to believe it is so accurate. And we've got, you know, some of the highest end, you know, music people in the world mixing in these formats, because they went to the trouble of building these huge immersive rooms, but the rooms get rented and they can't even get into their own rooms. So now you can, you know, do it and mix virtually. It's a lovely thing. Any other questions?
Yeah, so Almanax also wanted to ask about the 7506 folding up, which it does, or the upgraded ones, rather. I just wanted to know if you could...
Both of these fold flat, as do these, but certainly 7506s, as you know,
they have that...
They're like that, and, you know, whatever, and so on and so forth. And I will say that, you know, these are Alcantara, and they're nice and they're very comfortable. And you know, we feel at Sony that a pair of headphones you should be able to wear and not realize you're wearing headphones. You want them to feel like a worn pair of jeans. You're just not always conscious of them. But you know, these things eventually break down or flake, and just get a new pair of these original ear pads, put them on, and they'll feel like brand new 7506s the day you bought them.
The 7506s are so popular that you know, so many people make aftermarket, you know,
that's true,
absolutely,
as well,
and all that stuff. But it's just a testament to how well used and loved they are.
And they've been out for years and years and years. There's no question. And you know, and yes, but now at home in my home office, I live in these, in the MDR-M1s. They're just a joy to put on. They're so light, so comfortable. They sound so great. And you know, you might say, 80K, what do I need 80K for? but you don't hear an upper limit to whatever you listen to. I can listen to old MP3s, and they just soar. It just sounds so open, and it's just lovely. It's a wonderful thing to listen to.
Well, it's the intangibles, right? It's the things that you don't hear, but you might feel like you're missing something when you have that block. At least that's the way I always think about it.
And I'm always conscious when I'm listening to a pair of headphones. I hear an upper limit, and it just, I don't enjoy it as much.
Yeah.
I want it to sound like reality. And that's the goal of everything we do, is to make it sound like reality, right?
Absolutely. So Christian wants to know, how is the isolation on the new headphones? Isn't the open back subject to noise pollution from the environment?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the open backs, to a degree, we don't necessarily recommend for working in front of a microphone, because it will leak out. Depends on the sound source and how loud it is. If you're a drummer and you're banging away and you're listening to a track you're playing with, the level of the drums is so much louder than what's coming out of the headphones. If you're a composer and you're creating on a keyboard or an electronic keyboard, by all means, use the open backs. But I've also heard and got people that track with the open back headphones and say it is not a problem. If you got a click track in the back or something like that, and it's too loud, yes, that may be. But what somebody told me is that a vocalist needs to hear a little bit of themselves to sing properly in pitch. It's not as good to always just hear your fold back in your head through the console. And so there is that argument to be made. But, that's one reason for the MDR-M1s, the upgrade of the 7506, is that there's so much isolation, you don't really have to be concerned about that.
And Jim wanted to know, are the drivers on the open back and the M1s, they're different,
They
correct?
are different, absolutely different. They are different. But they both have that low frequency porting, for the bass control. They both do 5 hertz to 80K, all of that kind of stuff. They're both insanely lightweight, and they don't break the bank. They're at a nice price point.
And the so for our customer, for me,
yes,
right, who's mixing sound, I would probably go with the closed back.
It's noisy on set, and you just want to make sure you are really zeroing in on every little detail of what you hear.
Exactly.
I understand that. And okay.
All right. So one more question. This is a camera question, so you might not know.
I may have an answer.
But is there an FX3 version 2 in the works?
I am not the answer. I'm not the person to answer that. So we have the FX3, we have the FX30, we have the FX6. We update the firmware. We've gone up to, we've certainly got Venice 2 at the high end, which is, they just did the Bob Dylan movie on the Venice 2 and stuff. It's really great. And we've got the Burano, which is, kind of above where the FX9 is, and between that and the Venice camera. So our digital cinema cameras are really coming on strong and getting the what they deserve, reputation-wise. But I'm sorry, the name Sony, S-O-N-Y, soon, only not yet. And so will there be an upgrade to the FX3? Maybe. Maybe. And if I told you, I'd have to kill you, but I won't. But I really don't know. I really don't know.
You have to find a lot of people on this stream. Okay,
That's
so
right.
This brings us perfectly to our next and last part. But Carlos wants to know, are there any developments in Sony wireless?
There are some minor tweaks. We have, as you may know, our two families. We have UWP-D, UHF wireless package with digital signal processing that does all the companding schemes in the digital domain and sounds really lovely. And that can go to a whole lot of applications, including purpose-built for connection to our smaller alphas and DI cameras. When we move up into our shoulder cams and ENG news and EFP and news studio stuff, we go into our WX full digital system. And we've had this, introduced actually many years ago, but it is fully featured, wireless studio, all the controls, Zigbee remote control at a distance, multiple Zigbee antennas for various applications. We have introduced in the third generation of the slot receiver, the 2-channel DWR Slot Receiver, it can have either a unislot connector or a Sony 15 slot connector added to it. So it's can be whatever you want, just a couple of screws to put it in, but then it will slot into whichever your application is, and so that's good. But these also allow for that Zigbee remote controllability. So from the camera position, from the bag position, you can go out and control Talent's microphones that may be, kind of certainly hidden and so on and so forth. And, even remotely put them to sleep and save battery while everybody's on a lunch break, or change channel, all the things you'd want to be able to do.
Right.
We have introduced a DWA FO3D, which is a bag accessory that allows you to put this in and then, have outputs there and remotely power it, DC and USB, I believe. And so that's a little accessory piece that can help in a bag application.
Can I ask about these 4-pin bayonet connectors?
Yes, these come out, and I believe these are analog only. So they come with it, and they go from, I believe, 4-pin Rossi out to XLRs.
And then, so we've been having the darndest time getting those connectors to wire.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
If you maybe have a lead on that for us, that would
I'll
be
have
very
to
helpful.
Investigate.
Please, please.
Excuse me. We will study.
We will study. Perfect.
We will study. The DWX line is, kind of full FCC legal from 470 up through slivers at 616. And all of these models have been that for quite some time, but we had never really updated our handheld microphone, which is more popular for, stage or for European on-screen broadcast, as opposed to what we do in this country, which is more, stick mic and flag space and all that kind of stuff. But this now, DWM 30, is now full spectrum coverage, no blocks anymore, and it goes all the way from UHF 14 up through 30 slivers and 38. So that's updated as well. And just to remind you, this is our rechargeable body pack, very kind of low heat, no heat OLED, rechargeable. Get about 7+ hours out of the battery. Full spectrum, remote controllability, magnesium body, lightweight, so on and so forth.
Perfect. One thing, Tobias, if you could just kind of show the Sony booth, just to have our people get a sense of the scope of this place. It really is huge, and if you have an opportunity, if you
have a chance to get in front of the CLED screen from around the side, that's something.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to, just make sure you were all well aware of is in the UWP-D flavor, again, how things are purpose-built. Here is, I'm sorry, I've got a little kind of, oh, sorry. So this is our FX6, very popular camera, but I've got it rigged with not only our ECM MS2 short stereo shotgun, which is a great accessory because the FX6 is a 4-channel camera, and I've got it outfitted with our URX P41D dual-channel UWP-D wireless receiver, attached with our multi-interface shoe, which sends digital audio directly down through the shoe right into the video file of the camera. It prevents us from having to go with the receiver's D to A outputs and then into the camera's A to D inputs, and it cuts down those 2 extra stages. But the UWP-D receiver even can get its power through the my shoe. So you don't have to have batteries in here. I happen to have them in here, but that can even lighten up the camera a bit because the power from the camera's battery comes up through the shoe and will power the receiver. But the receiver is a very nice feature in the channel receiver, because what it can do is in a single scan, it can do a scan all the way from 14 up 25 or 25 to 36. We even have a 90 block, which is in the 940 to 960 range. And in one scan, it will give the 2 quietest frequencies in one pass. And because, if you may recall, these all have NFC logos on the receivers and on the transmitters. So you don't even have to go to a menu. Just hold down the NFC sync button. It'll take off and scan in about 12 seconds. It'll find you the 2 quietest frequencies. Take the transmitters, you touch them face to face. It vibrates your hand. That transmitter's set. And now it says, take your second one, put it on there. Or kind of, if I could, sorry, to jump over here, just to reiterate, Our plug-on transmitter has phantom power. It's very small. It's great for boom op and all that kind of stuff as well. And that's nice and small. And the last part, just to remind everybody about, is the single channel receiver as well as the dual channel receiver. In addition to the main outputs, mic level outputs, they also have a headphone jack. So not only for monitoring local and making sure that your signal's clean, these make a great personal monitoring device on set. So you can hand these out like, candy. You can have 20, 30, or 40 of these. They can all be tuned in to the transmitter coming out of your bag.
Mm-hmm.
And because of our NFC pairing mode, to set the frequencies on all those receivers, hold them up to the transmitter, they get the frequency. Pick up another one, pick up another one, and hand them out. But these go on your belt. The plus and minus buttons become your volume control, and they are fully UHF coordinatable, whatever, with all of the talent mics as well. So it's a very high quality, true double tuner diversity way of having on-set monitoring for all the people that need to monitor versus what a lot of people commonly use. So check that out for that application.
All right. A couple quick questions before we wrap up.
Yes.
First and foremost, where did we go? Cinema Sound wanted to know, is there a way to update the firmware on these Sony UWPs?
There is a USB-C connector on the bottom, but we really haven't had any major updates that I'm aware of in this 4th generation system.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question. So Jim wants to know, hi Jim. Jim Keeney wants to know, can the handle interface bring 4 channels of Sony, 4 channels of audio into an A7S?
Another good question. An A7S, I believe the A7S has another little door on it that allows for 2 additional channels on a little mini jack connector.
The 3.5.
In addition to the MI shoe connector on top. So the level of control that you get out of those additional inputs as well.
So it wouldn't be through the top like this.
Well, there are, for some of our cameras, we have an accessory product in the Sony consumer line, which is an XLR audio pod and a shotgun mic, I believe, and that can be added to a lot of the Alpha cameras. It takes the place of the MI shoe. It uses the MI shoe on the camera, but adds all this other stuff. Here we've got an FX3 with just the receiver, MI shoed right directly to it. But that XL adapter also has another little connector in there as well.
Perfect.
One final last thing on UWP-D, because I think it's an interesting thing. If any of you have ever, at this level of wireless, encountered occupancy sensors in, green architecture that causes the companion scheme to maybe flutter or something like that, since we are doing our companion scheme digitally inside of DSP, we have reserved a little corner of that DSP to put in a digital filter that is assignable to filter out those ultra-high frequency emitters that are the occupancy sensors to turn lights off when everybody leaves the room at either 20K and above or 15K and above. And certainly our human voice is down around 3K, so you're never really going to hear it. But it'll get you out of trouble if all of a sudden you're hearing that flutter, pumping and breathing, things like that.
Nice. All right, so a last comment, and this is from Carlos. Carlos said, Sony makes an MI shoe extension cable, but only bundles it in a kit. Would love to be able to buy that separately so we can remote it to a different location on the camera. I actually think we've been able to find that cable separately.
It should be available as a part
Yeah.
through, oh my gosh.
I've seen it. So, Carlos, shoot me an email, and you've got my email.
Absolutely.
All right, Andy, we got to run, but
thank
you
so much, guys. Thank you. Wish you were here.
Yes,
exactly. Come next year. Enjoy
Are you
the
going to
show.
be with us at the Gotham Expo in a couple of weeks?
Hopefully.
All right, great. Well, listen, thank you for watching. Thank you for your comment. See more videos like this at gothamsound.tv. Follow us on all the different social medias, whatever you can think of. I'm sure we're there. With any questions, email us at info@gothamsound.com. And if you are considering purchasing or renting professional audio equipment or communications equipment like this, please consider Gotham Sound. See you soon.